NBC has created a monster, and it is called Donald Trump.
David, you're fired. Mark, you're fired. Richard, you're fired. Latoya, you're fired. And Gary, you're fired.
Donald Trump brought his relentless campaign of hatred of President Barack Obama to New Hampshire today, where he was asked by a reporter why he has not announced he is running for president. Trump knows that when he announces he is not running for president, the news media will disappear from his doorstep. Trump needs media attention the way the rest of us need air to breathe. He will obviously say and do anything to get media attention. He always has and always will. Being the star of an NBC fake reality show is not enough attention for Donald Trump. But that's all he will be the day he announces he's not running for president. He will be forced to retake his place at the bottom of the celebrity pile with Snooki and The Situation. So what does Trump say today when faced with increasing reporters' impatience about why he has not announced that he is a candidate for president? He answered that question in New Hampshire.
Here's the problem. I hate saying it because it sounds trivial, but I have a very, very successful show on television, the #1 show on NBC, a show that even the New York Times yesterday said is a very, very successful show. I have a show called Celebrity Apprentice. I cannot announce until that show is over. Just can't do it. I'd love to do it for you, but I can't do it. When the show is over, let me explain. When the show is over, and the finale will be on May 22nd. When the show is over, I will then be free to announce. I think you will be surprised at a number of things, but I think you will be surprised at what my announcement is.
Well, he's right that it does sound trivial that an NBC fake reality show is the reason someone cannot announce a candidacy for president of the United States. It is also not true. Trump could have announced today that he's going to run for president, and NBC could continue to run his show without having to give equal time to other candidates for president. Because if Trump said today that he was going to run for president, he would not automatically become a legally qualified candidate until he filed the legally required candidacy papers. He could wait for weeks or months to file those papers after simply saying he's going to run for president. Only a legally qualified candidate can provoke equal time claims on a network. But candidates appearing on entertainment shows never provoke equal time claims. Saturday Night Live in this very building has candidates come on all the time without opposing candidates asking for equal time. Trump is now hiding behind NBC when asked the single most important question in front of him, are you going to run for president? And NBC is allowing him to hide behind NBC. As soon as Trump answered that question that way in New Hampshire today, hiding behind NBC, all of the political reporters covering that story in New Hampshire and Washington should have immediately called NBC. There are executives at NBC, both here in New York and in Burbank, who shall for this hour anyway remain nameless, who know whether Donald Trump is already committed to appearing on his fake reality show next season. If Donald Trump has committed to do that, he is obviously not running for president, and all of this, every bit of it, is as fake as Donald's fake reality show, where he pretends to fire some very sad people. Those NBC executives should not be allowed to survive another day of involuntary entanglement in the Trump hatred campaign without being asked everything they know about Donald Trump's professional commitments and performance obligations to NBC. That now is important news. NBC will announce its full schedule for the coming season in New York on Monday, May 16th, but they don't have to wait until Monday, May 16th to tell us what is going to happen to Donald Trump's fake reality show and Donald Trump's personal employment with NBC. They know the answer to that now. The reason they have remained unmolested by reporters so far is because political reporters are not used to calling up Hollywood executives, in this case Burbank executives, to find out what's going to happen next in a presidential campaign. And political reporters have no idea how and when a broadcast network assembles its entertainment broadcast schedule. The New York Times got interested in this question recently and asked NBC executives what to make of a Trump for president campaign. The response from one NBC senior executive was, quote, "This is Donald being Donald," end quote. According to the New York Times, that executive asked not to be identified to avoid any conflict with Mr. Trump. NBC can no longer avoid any conflict with Mr. Trump. NBC has a conflict with Mr. Trump. NBC has created a monster who is using his NBC fame to spew hatred, reeking with racist overtones and undertones about the President of the United States. NBC can no longer stand idly by, not for one more day. The NBC Entertainment Division could not possibly have created a worse conflict with the NBC News Division. The NBC Entertainment Division is now in possession of news that the NBC News Division would like to have. An NBC paid performer, the most deranged egomaniac in the history of the NBC Entertainment Division, has spewed lies to the point where he provoked this.
As many of you have been briefed, we provided additional information today about the site of my birth. Now, this issue has been going on for two and a half years now. I think it started during the campaign. And I have to say that over the last 2.5 years, I have watched with bemusement. I've been puzzled at the degree to which this thing just kept on going. We've had every official in Hawaii, Democrat and Republican, every news outlet that has investigated this, confirm that, yes, in fact, I was born in Hawaii, August 4th, 1961, in Kapiolani Hospital.
NBC News was forced to break into NBC's scheduled programming to carry the president's news conference live. MSNBC was obviously ready to cover the president's news conference live. That's what we do here, as were other news networks. But we all had to cut away from live coverage of NBC's biggest embarrassment in history, talking to reporters in New Hampshire. In the president's brief appearance before the cameras today, he complained about how much the birth certificate story has distracted from Washington's and the media's ability to focus on the important issues of the day. He then said this.
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
The carnival barker he's talking about is an NBC employee. That leaves NBC the following options. One, simply say what most of America is dying to hear and say it now. Donald Trump, you're fired. Two, order the NBC employee, the carnival barker in question, to shut up. Or three, and this is the easiest one for NBC to do. NBC has absolutely no excuse left for not doing this. Simply reveal everything that NBC knows about Donald Trump's commitments and plans for continued employment with NBC and reveal it tonight, immediately. It is now 12 minutes after 5 p.m. in Burbank, California, where the executives who know the truth are all still in their offices. So are the people who write their press releases. The ones who wrote the press releases that have already said 30 Rock is coming back for another season, that Community is coming back for another season, that Parks and Recreation is coming back for another season. They put out those press releases a month ago, and a month before that, they told us that The Biggest Loser is coming back for another season. You must now, tonight, before you leave your offices in Burbank, tell us if Donald Trump is coming back to work at NBC for another season. That is important news. Every hour of silence that ticks away with NBC entertainment executives in Burbank continuing to live in fear, as the New York Times put it, of any conflict with Mr. Trump, must, from this point forward, be counted as an hour in which those NBC entertainment executives will have become complicit in the ugliest campaign of the television age, a campaign in which a vulgar NBC performer has become the sleazy frontman of a campaign to legitimize hatred and racism. In his desperation today, Trump turned from attacking one man's birth certificate to actually trying to undermine the acceptance of the academic credentials of not just Barack Obama, but of African Americans generally. He says to America, in effect, how could this guy Obama get into better universities than I did? And he suggests something unfair happened there. He doesn't use the words affirmative action, not yet. In fact, he doesn't say anything about why he thinks Barack Obama did not deserve admission to Columbia University or Harvard Law School. What the racists hear when he says that, and what Donald Trump knows the racists hear when he says that, is, how did this black man get into those schools? He's trying to tell people that there was no legitimate way for Barack Obama to get into those schools. Donald Trump, who has needed a co-author to turn out every one of his books, has insisted that it was impossible for Barack Obama to write his own books. Why? What would make Barack Obama incapable of writing his own memoirs? What is it about him that would explain why he couldn't put such good prose as appears in the pages of the Obama books together in a sentence? What is it Trump sees in Barack Obama that requires Trump to deny Barack Obama's intellectual achievement? And who else does he see that in? Should we now doubt Michelle Obama's qualifications for admission to Princeton? Trump complains that he has rich friends with rich kids who are smart, with good grades and SAT scores, and they can't get into Harvard. And he suggests there is something rigged in Barack Obama's favor that somehow allowed him to get into Harvard, that there's something wrong happening here. Okay, well, I got into Harvard too. In fact, it was the only college I applied to, so I can't speak for anywhere else. But as long as Trump is harping on Harvard, as long as he's obsessed with Harvard, a place he knows nothing about, he should know that when I got to Harvard, there were plenty of students with better board scores and better grades than I had. And I know Donald will never believe this, but there were black students there who came from much more educationally challenged backgrounds than I did, who had better grades and better SAT scores than I did, and they got better grades at Harvard than I did. David Remnick, the editor of The New Yorker, who has written the definitive biography of Barack Obama, and who will join me later, wrote today, what Trump has done is a conscious form of race baiting, of fear-mongering. The time has come to appeal to the fundamental decency of NBC entertainment executives. I know some of these people. I know they have that decency. You must tell us now everything you know about Donald Trump's plans, and you must tell us tonight. And don't ever, ever again dare to tell us that this is Donald being Donald.